Revolutionary and solidarity greetings, my fellow Kenyans. This is Comrade Pigbin Odimwengu, a member of course, African Revolutionaries Kenya chapter. And today I wish to make a statement, of course, on behalf of Kenyan youth. I was, of course, one of the youngest presidential aspirants in this previous election. But, of course, I believe it's not the citizen that stopped me being on the ballot. And therefore, I must actually still speak on behalf of the people and actually share my thinking in regards to what I think was right, or what I think should be right, or what I think is right that the government must do. As of course a potential presidential candidate, it concerns me more when the people are suffering today, and many people of course ran for or wanted to be presidents are silent. As my call again and appeal to all those who wanted to be presidential aspirants, we are over 57 of us. It's time that the Kenyans need you to come and speak and talk on their behalf. Of course, even if you never made it to be the president, you still have the responsibility and the people believed in you. And therefore, it's time that you must come out and speak on their behalf. And this is why I want to make this address today. It concerns me more when I see the country going in the wrong direction. And must remind all of us that when this government will sink, it will sink with all of us. And our silence will not actually save any of us, be it the rich, the poor and the young. When the country goes down, it goes with all of us. You can see how our currency has been weakening for a period of time now. Of course, when Uhuru Kenyatta got into power in 2013, dollar was going at around 105 Kenya shillings, or 103 there. He left when it was around 119 or 120 over 10 years. Today, in a year, the dollar has moved from almost 120 or 121, close to 150 and 151. That's a huge increment, and it's weakening our dollar. What does this do to our economy? You know, actually it increases the values of our debt, external debts. You know, actually it also increases the exportation and importation issues. And actually this also makes cost of everything go up. And therefore, as a young person, I will speak on behalf of many young people. Many of them who are now poor, many of them who are hustlers, who of course had the last hope. And that hope was actually ignited by President William Ruto, who gave them the hope that don't worry, don't give up, don't die. Just give me that little hope you are left with. I'm going to bring the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's so sad and disheartening that after that, President Ruto come back, no, and actually with no light at all, but to tell you how much you're still left with, for me to go back and purchase the same light for you. Today, there are so many young people who are actually struggling getting even employment. So many graduates. I know of so many interns, of course, from the teaching, medical, and many other sectors who don't have anything at all to survive on. Now, the government start to propose increment of course, government services. I'll ask myself one thing. When did the government become a private entity? That its mentality is more of private-oriented mentality. That should not be the case. This is a public institution whose responsibility and its purpose should be purely to provide services, not profit making on behalf of the people. When, example, a minister proposes a proposal that you have to pay for Huduma services at Huduma Center, well, you still pay to pay those people who serve there at Huduma Center, you're asked again to pay for them to serve you. That's so dangerous. Audacity, and actually is on another level. So we must talk. We must talk wherever you are. Whether you're old, young, or poor, you must talk. Because even if you're driving your V8 today, when the cost of petroleum will be moving, as the Minister of course Energy proposed that it will move maybe by 100 by December, you will still suffer. Because that is an increment of over 100 or 50% of your salaries on fuels alone. So comrades, what's going on? What should we do? And that's why I want to urge all citizens of this country, especially the young people, that we must wake up. The hustlers whose hope were ignited, that they must wake up and act. We must hold the government accountable and call on to the government that they must answer to what they actually promised to us. I think it is also time that we must make this radical proposal that moving forward, manifestos of politicians, president, and anybody else must be legally binding, and failure or deviating from those manifestos should lead to arrest or civil proceedings on any candidate, because that's actually not acceptable. We have seen so many actually unfair policies. I'll mention some few that we will be addressing further, including the digital identification card, the Maisha number. We have a Duma number, you bring a Maisha number. And who do you give the tender to? Bill Gates. Bill Gates, whose opinions and his intentions have been clearly mentioned worldwide, that he has an intention to reduce the population of the world, particularly Africa. You give them the access to manage the data and the registration of our people, especially our young population. Even if you are that useless or uncaring or somebody who don't care at all, could you actually sell the future generation to the hands of a person who has explicitly said clearly that his intention is to reduce the population? Where was the public participation? Those sensitive data that are going to be taken are very sensitive. How is the security, the transparency, the protection, and everything else? And therefore, according to our Data Protection Act of 2019, the president must review that policy, and that executive move to allow actually Bill Gates to handle that Maisha number, and Maisha number should be stopped completely. The digital identification card is not to the intention of the people. We know we want to move digital, but not that way. We need actually to safeguard the future of our nation. You go along to so many other things, like the recent one, and I knew the parliament was actually to rubber stamp the government mission to Haiti. How do you send soldiers of Kenya to Haiti to go kill our fellow brothers in the name of leading UN peacekeeping mission? Kenya has a paramilitary of only 55,000. US has a paramilitary of close to 3 million. In fact, it's not 3 million, it's 1.6 million. So who should be leading the mission? And why should you go to Haiti to kill our brothers for the interest of US? The Haiti people from San Domingo have actually suffered a lot of historical injustices. Just to mention a few, they fought against the Spanish, the French, the British, and the US. None of them have never fought. And they won the war until they became the first black nation to gain its independence. And therefore, we must not actually try to abuse the history. We must appreciate the struggle. Our brothers who have moved from Africa by the new colonial masters, who are now sending Kenya back to follow them where they went to. They never went there peacefully. They died in the Atlantic Ocean. They fought so many wars. They were raped, maimed, and everything else was done against them. And now today, an African country with the African soldier want to do the same to our brothers. That must be stopped, and that must be condemned in the strongest term possible. So comrades, we must actually condemn the government of Kenya's intention to send soldiers to Haiti. I know they might not care, but at least we must put our voice forward that one day the history will not judge us wrong. The history will put us on the right side of the history, that we spoke and stood for the brothers of Haiti and our brothers in the lower Caribbean and the Caribbean nations like Jamaica and Barbados, those countries that are willing to send soldiers to go fight their neighboring African nations who went through the same history as they went through, must be ashamed and must be called off completely. We cannot allow that. And finally, comrades, you see, there have been so many issues that are actually been going on. You see, there's no job creation in this country. We are told that what you have to do, we can take you out there. We've looked for opportunity out there. Check on the corruption and scandals that are going on within the government. The president makes tours like if he's a tourist in this country. He's never a president. In fact, he's a visiting president to Kenya. He's a visiting president to Kenya. He always comes here for a week and is gone. To what interest do those trips serve the interests of the Kenyans? Can you account for the money that is being used, the public money that is being used? Can you account for the importance or actually the benefit of that? Today I've just seen that IMF is approving another 147 billion loan for Kenya. Debts, as Sankara said in the AU meeting in 1986, that they're only trapped to continue us making us poor and to enslave us. There are neo-colonial systems and actually chains that are being put on Africans to continue actually oppressing us. So comrades, we must be very clear and we must come out to defend our African and our brothers. The independence of Africa was never won freely. It was a struggle and a fight, and it has to take the same. We can never betray the spirit and the struggles of the freedom fighters and the founding fathers. We must actually move forward to realize the Pan-African spirit and one unity. We must stand together with all oppressed people across the world, from the people of Palestine who are actually now being killed in high number. I believe that if there is any differences, the differences must not be solved by the life of another person. There's no human life that is more important than any other life. And there's no justification that you can take a life of another person just to prove your statement and your point. And therefore, I am against, and we as the African Revolutionaries Kenya chapter, against any mass killing that is going on in Palestine. And those who pretend to be the human rights defenders, the United Human Rights Declaration and UN and all other bodies, including ICC, must now act. When it's an African where maybe 1,000 people are killed during post-election violence, you come strongly to arrest our people. When it's happening out there, you're silent. That must be called for. And the US must be ashamed for supporting that. United Nations actually was built under a nation of civil war, and they know what it costed them to have a nation. And they cannot go ahead to support the killing of any other person. So comrades, this march must be stopped. And we must come out and speak. The young people, the hustlers, wherever you are in the streets and in the slums, you must come out and speak. This government is not going to listen if you don't speak. And if you don't speak strongly and consistently, we must always never relent in this struggle. And all those who wanted to be leaders from MCS and whatever must now come out, because the parliament has failed. The parliament has become a rubber stamp of the executive. Puppets, as the same way the president is a puppet of those whom we call his masters, either the West or whatever. He is a puppet, and he must state clearly to his eyes that the president must stop to be puppets of the Western imperialists that are actually exploiting Africa for their own interests. Mr. President, remember you are voted in by the poor people whom you gave hope that one day things will be okay. Can you face those people in their eyes again and tell them that they must wait longer? Do you believe if election was to be conducted today, will those poor people come out again and vote you? Whatever you do, even if you not pay for it, your generation will pay for it dearly. And one day you'll be a retired president, and one of us will be there, and we must recorrect and correct this. So, Mr. President, we still have to urge you and remind you, you have the responsibility to protect the interests of Kenyans and stop your so many borrowing and so many taxation. Our founding fathers never fought for a nation that will actually pay everything in the name to serve that government. And even after paying heavy taxation, there's no single public school you're building, no single hospitals you're building, nothing. Yours is just prayers in your state house, tours and everything else that you do. But people are suffering here today. We need salary increment. I saw the proposal by Maraga, increment of salaries in the police officers. It's a good step in the right direction. But all civil servants and all public workers, including even those in the private sectors, need salary increment. You cannot come with an employment tax that you're trying to put on form. The employed person has employed other people through the business they have opened, and they're paying tax through that. Why do you ask them again to pay another tax, the so-called unemployment tax? Did you promise us that you are going to tax employed people to create opportunity for the unemployed people? You never said that. You said you have planned to create 1 million jobs. We want to see those 1 million jobs annually, but not taxing my money to pay another person. Just the same way you're doing the housing. You take my money to build a house and tell me that you provided a house for me. Who's fooling who? So we must be very serious. I'm calling upon everybody to speak. We must speak and send this viral. I know the mainstream media are trying to stop this message to go out. We will use all means possible. So as revolutionary African Kenyans, revolutionaries, and the young people of this nation, this is a clear message you send to the president and the whole people of this country. If the government fails to act, we will paralyze this government. We will call boycotts and protests. The people's voices and the people's power must never be defeated. And we must always remind the government that the sovereignty and the sovereign power belong to us. And it must be exercised to our interests, not to the interest of somebody who want to tell us that they think good for us. So the whole government must sit down and think again, what do they want to serve? Is it serving us, or serving themselves, or serving their masters? So thank you very much, comrades. Our Luta continue, the struggle for liberation of Kenya, the struggle for liberation of Africa, and the unification of Africa, and the struggle for our brothers who are killed in Haiti and the Caribbean, and the struggle of everybody else and all wars in Africa must stop. The US and the West must remove their military bases in Africa. They must get out. We are independent and we are sovereign enough, and we must realize that these people don't want us to be united. So united we are strong, divided we are weak. We unite or perish. The unity is only strength of Africa. Our number, our indexes, our resources is enough to build a strong Africa. So, fellow comrades, let's continue. Homeland or death, we will win.